Hello, you guys. Welcome to the Ranting Shop. It's me, Melissa, and today I want to talk a little bit about a show that I don't really follow or review, but I wanted to review this particular episode because it was just so extremely alarming to watch, and I just felt like there was a need to discuss it further. So, the show that I'm referring to is Family or Fiance, and that is a show by the OWN network, and the premise of the show is for these couples to go on there for, I suppose, 3 days with three members of either of their families, and what they're gonna go there to do is to discuss whether the family members agree with them getting married. And what it does is that it creates a bigger conversation about whether they should really get married at this particular time, whether they should maybe first work on their issues before they rush into marriage, or maybe just take a second look or analyze things maybe more in depth before they go into a union. Most of the time they end up marrying the person anyways. Most of the time they end up not taking the advice of the family members anyways, so it's not that shocking. So in this particular case, you have a woman named Katasha and her fiance. I forgot his name. I forgot the fiance's name, you guys. I completely forgot. But it is Victor. Okay, so we have Katasha and Victor. And what is alarming when you first look at them is the age difference. He met her at a grocery store because that's where she used to work when she was 19, and he was 49 years old. So that's one of the major red flags that I stumbled upon. Now, a lot of people like to say, oh, age is nothing but a number, and maturity and age are not necessarily congruent and stuff like that. However, it is quite alarming for a 49-year-old to want to pursue a 19-year-old. You guys, like, let's cut all that BS about age and maturity and all that stuff. It is alarming for a 49-year-old man that has been divorced at that time 3 times now. He wasn't divorced. The last time he got divorced was intertwined with the time he had. Anyway. So yes, before I even go further into the whole situation of the entanglement that took place, I'm just gonna go back a bit and talk about all the red flags that I stumbled on. There might be more, but there was quite a lot, so it's quite possible that I might miss out on some. But the first one was you as a grown, hard-back man looking for a young, moldable, vulnerable girl at 19 years old. That's sickening to me. It sickens me. I don't know. There's something about it that doesn't sit quite well with me. It gives me the vibe of a manipulator, that an abuser that wants somebody to take his abuse. And for a lot of men, young women are that sweet spot. So there's that. The other thing that baffled me, that was crazy to me, was this man had been married 3 times. Now, with all these marriages, this man said he has never been in love. This man has never been in love. So what did you get married for? Now, I know that marriages are legal transactions and so on and so forth, but the whole premise of marriage is kind of love, isn't it? Is it not? Let me know. But this man never loved any of his wives. And another thing that's a red flag is the man is saying that he never took his marriages seriously. That was like, whoa, that's crazy to me. Because marriage is a serious thing. So for you to not take it seriously, again, it boils back to, why did you get married? What was the reason or premise for you to get married 3 times? I don't get it. This man is a commitment phobe. Although he's been married 3 times, he is not a man of discipline, because he's cheated on, I believe, all of his wives, including the last one. And it's like there's no regard. It's like he just does what he wants to do, no regards to anybody else. And that shows a lot of selfishness on his part, and it's very childish as well. So one of the things that, a lot of things had my mind going in multiple different places because I was so baffled. He met this young girl at a store. That girl was in a very vulnerable position because at that time she had been kicked out by her mom for whatever reason. So all she had to rely on was this man. This man invited her to live with him whilst he was still married, whilst his wife was still there in the house. The wife is thinking everything is fine. Oh, this girl is poor girl. Let me help her because of what the man told her. Lying. He's a liar. He's a manipulator. So this woman is thinking, oh, we're just helping this young girl, taking her in. Yes, she didn't have anywhere else to go. So technically she was in need, but she had no place being in this man's marriage home. But anyways, she comes into the house, plays this role like this poor destitute woman. Whole time she's sleeping with this woman's husband. Whole time this husband is lying to his wife about his mistress. This was crazy. So when the lady started putting two and two together, she started realizing that no, you guys have something together. Then they eventually put the truth out on the table, and he told the wife, yes, I'm with her and I want to divorce you. So this man didn't even decide to divorce his wife before he did his nasty shenanigans. This man decided to get a divorce while his mistress was staying with him and his wife. Sickening. Sickening. This girl was in a very vulnerable position, very desperate position. She didn't have anywhere to stay. So she was willing to do whatever she needed to do to have a roof over her head. And that's what she did. Now, a lot of people see her actions as very trifling, very disgusting, very dishonorable, filthy, all the negative words. But she was in a very vulnerable position. Now, I do believe in people holding themselves accountable, because it's not like she's this naive baby. She knew exactly what she was doing, but she did it because she was in a desperate position. He operated in a selfish mind space. He's always been selfish. Everything has always been about him. So he didn't care about the feelings of his wife at that time. All he cared about was the fact that he wanted to be this new young thing. So he told the wife he wanted a divorce. And the funny and strange thing about it is, then now she's moved into the marriage bed where the wife used to be. And now the wife is now the guest in the home. That's craziness to me. That is absolute craziness to me. A man that is 49, now he's 50 something years old, who's never been in love, is alarming. It's alarming. A man who's that age, who got married 3 times but never took his marriages seriously, alarming. My question is, why would this girl think that she is the exception? Why do women always feel as if they're the exception? Knowing a man's history, why do you feel like you're the one that's going to change his mind? Women always fall into this trap of, oh, he did this with you, he's not going to do that to me, and end up in that same boat. I don't get it. But anyways, for some reason, it almost as if this girl feels trapped and she has nowhere else to go, nowhere better to go. Now, mind you, she's been saying, oh, she wanted something different. The guys her age or blah, 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 blah. And all time, this grown man cheating on you. What's the difference? What's the difference? Same actions, different age. Now, even while the man was married to her, was with her, he never stopped cheating on her. As far as he's concerned, as far as his interpretation, the moment they broke up, he took it as the time for him to do as he pleased. And so he did as he pleased. Never once does it ever appear to me that this man is considerate of other people's feelings. It feels as if everything he does it for his fulfillment. F everybody else and how they feel. That's what it seems like to me. Everything is for him. Everything is about him. And watching this episode was so cringy and so... it brought up so much negative emotion. It was gag-worthy, you know? So they separate, you know, most of the time when they separate, he has to go off with her family members. She has to go off with his family members. Now, he going off with her family members, of course, they have concerns, particularly about domestic violence, because they've been hearing stuff, she's been saying stuff, or they've been feeling things has not quite been right. And what they're thinking is there has to be some type of violence there. Now, he mentions that he's never been abusive, and he'd be the one to allow her to hit him first before he hit her. Now, he never stated that he never hit her. He said she allows him, he hits her first. That's what she said. And then when they asked for some clarification, he reneges and says, oh, there's no violence. Now, over to her now, she's saying that he's not controlling. And she gets defensive with the stepdaughter because she feels as if the stepdaughter is questioning her and her motives. But in actuality, the stepdaughter is on the right track, considering you just stated that the only reason why you moved with him is because you had nowhere else to stay. So if the stepdaughter is feeling as if you're using him for what he can give you, I can't blame the stepdaughter for thinking that way, because I think that way too. Certain parts of it has to do with the fact that he provides something for you that you cannot find or you don't have on your own. And that is one of the things that binds you to this man. And that's one of the reasons why he targeted you in the first place, is because he knew you would be dependent on him in some regards. So for her to be angry and upset and offended, it just spoke to the fact that there was something that stepdaughter was touching on that she felt was perhaps maybe too close to the truth of the situation, and she did not want to have that conversation. So she, of course, gets loud with the stepdaughter. Everybody steps in. They decide to, go someplace else and cool off. And Katasha has a conversation with her stepmom, and her stepmom, wanted to dig deeper into that question that they asked Victor, that he answered in a way that was very suspect. So she, of course, went to Katasha, spoke to her on a one-on-one basis, and Katasha basically blurted this stuff out, which was that she has been abused in that relationship. He has been abusing her, and she was afraid to say anything because, according to her, he gets angry over every little thing. So she doesn't want to make him mad, so she decided to keep this stuff to her and not let it out. But what it ended up being was that before they both came to that whole situation, he had told her, don't you tell anybody about this situation. Don't tell anyone. And this is another red flag. Why is it that she is not allowed to speak freely about an abusive situation that she's going through? It shows a lot about his need for control. That is why he targeted this girl in the first place, because he wanted someone to control. He wanted somebody to shut up when he said shut up. He wanted somebody to do something when he said to do it. He was treating her like his kid. And I even forgot to mention the fact that when Katasha was talking to the man's side of the family, they touched on the fact that they both see each other, Katasha and Victor, as family members in a sense, because she sees him as somewhat of a father figure because she did not have a father in her life. He sees her as his daughter, which is in itself disgusting. So they have this very warped, awkward, weird, almost incestuous relationship, and it's disgusting. So he's been abusing this girl. This girl is afraid to say anything because she doesn't want him to be mad. And the stepmother is trying to tell her that, you could always speak to me. And I mean, she's doing the best she can, being a domestic abuse survivor that she was. She understands how to speak to an abused victim. She knows the answer is not to tell her leave. The answer is to just create an open line of communication so that the girl feels comfortable coming to her if there is any issue. So I'm happy that happened. Now, of course, the stepmother goes ahead and speaks to the therapist and tells the therapist what Katasha tells her. And of course, I do believe Katasha told her stepmother because she knew the stepmother would tell the people that needed to be told. And the stepmother shed light on her abuse situation when she was growing, when she was part of an abusive relationship. Now, I'm just putting two and two together and coming up with the conclusion that the stepmother used to be with Katasha's dad. And Katasha's dad used to abuse the stepmother. And so Katasha growing up, that's the example she saw. She saw her father abuse her stepmother. And how ironic it is that she ends up in the same exact situation. And of course, the stepmother blames herself. And the stepmother, though, is in a very unique position because then she's able to speak to Katasha from a perspective of someone who has gone through that situation before. And she understands. And she was saying that, this woman was she was in a coma because of her injuries. And and it was very critical. And when she got out of that coma, she prayed and said, I finally see it now. If I had not seen it before, I see it now. And then she was able to get out of that abuse situation. She went through the gutter and then she got the will and the drive to leave. So she understands Katasha's position. So then, armed with that information, the therapist decides to sit down with Katasha and Victor. And of course, she's asking Victor, what is happening in you guys' relationship? What is this talk of abuse I'm hearing? Neither of them want to speak. Now, I understand why Katasha doesn't want to speak, because she's in a room with her abuser. And her actions and if you look at her body language, it's very reminiscent of someone who's been abused. Very closed off, very to herself, very stiff. Almost like she's afraid to say something because she doesn't know what his reaction is going to be. So they both don't want to say anything. He's talking about, he doesn't want to talk about it because he's going to open up a whole bunch of things, making everybody even more scared and suspicious of him. So he wants to know what Katasha said. Katasha keeps shaking her head like this, almost to say, I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. It's so scary to watch, And the therapist was like, why is it so important for you to know what was said? And it's so important for him to know what was said because he wants to be able to control the narrative of the situation. So if he knows what was said, he knows how deep to go into things and how surface level to keep it. If he knows what she said, then he could combat it. And so the therapist asked him, do you want to know what was said so you could move forward, or do you want to know what was said or what did the therapist say? The therapist said, do you want to know how to move forward or whatever, or do you want to know what was said? And this man only wants to know what was said so he can combat it with his own argument. Now I said, why is it necessary for this man to know what was said? Unless he's just trying to gauge how much he can spill, how much of the narrative he can control, how much of everything he could say is a lie. Oh, that was so filthy to watch. Oh! And then when it came down to it, because normally it's for 3 days, as I said, and at the end of it, they decide whether they get the family's blessings or not. But this particular time, they cut that short. They were like, you guys need to spend 30 days away from each other, separate therapy sessions, deal with your own stuff by yourselves. And if you decide that you still want it to be together, do that. But take that time. Take that time for yourselves individually. Come to find out, she came to the realization that she was in a 6-year, or she had been covering up this 6-year abusive relationship, and she broke down to the therapist. And after they were like, Victor, can you leave? Because they realized it was a very awkward situation and very scary situation for her to be in a room with her abuser and to be asked about the abuse. It's scary. I don't know if it was wise to do that, but then it gave the viewers the ability to see and to assess his body language. And you could see he was not pleased. And so they let him go for a while, and the therapist talked to Katasha, and the therapist was like, and she broke down to the therapist, and she was like, she was tired of hiding things. She was tired of acting like everything was okay. She was not okay. And it was so heartbreaking to be able to see the breakdown. Like, all she needed was just for her voice to be heard. She finally got her voice heard in an environment that she would consider safe. And she finally came to the conclusion that she's been in a 6-year relationship that's been abusive. She finally was able to say that. But the scary thing about it is, while the show is ending and we're seeing what came of this couple, we're realizing that things didn't go how we would have hoped it would go. Why? Because they ended up, number one, not taking the advice of the therapist and seeking the 30-day therapy separate from each other. In fact, I believe 2 weeks later or so, they went to a courthouse and got married without any of the family members present. So you know what that tells me? That's another abuse tactic that he did there. That was another grab at control. That is, you can't tell me that wasn't this man's idea. That was absolutely this man's idea to say, you know what, people are seeing their cracks and stuff, let's hurry up and get married so that nobody can talk you out of leaving me. Sickening. Ooh, that bothers me so much, you guys. I don't feel like this relationship is gonna get positive from there. I don't see it going into a positive space. They're just gonna keep being in this abusive situation. And I remember the man was talking about, oh, he doesn't know how long he has to live. Is he dying? Is that why he wants to rush into marriage despite what anybody says? Or is it that he just wants to control this woman? Either way, I was just left feeling so uneasy about the situation, so angry about everything that I heard. And she's like, it's like Stockholm syndrome. That's all she knows. And so she's going with it. And it's just sickening to see. Anyways, you guys, let me know what you think, and let me know if you'd like to add anything to the conversation. Like, what it is, what do you think? How did you feel watching that episode? How did that episode affect you? It was so triggering. And the way things ended up, sickening. But anyways, you guys, that's all I have to say for this particular episode of Family or Fiance. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Please like and subscribe and stay tuned for other reviews from the Ranting Shop. It's me, Melissa. Bye, you guys.